In this video, I'm going to differentiate between product or period cost. Here's some good news. If you already have manufacturing versus non-manufacturing costs, these are basically just different terms for the same thing. A product cost is the same thing as a manufacturing cost. It's the cost related to making or producing the product or service. So in an earlier video, I said that includes direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. Whereas a period cost is the same thing as a non-manufacturing cost, and we gave two particular examples, and that was either a selling cost related to enticing the customer to make a purchase or delivering the product to the customer, or administrative costs, just part of the general management within the company. So hopefully that helps, just a different term for the same thing. We're going to look at a company that manufactures sophisticated spy cameras. And so we have a bunch of different examples of cost, and let's try to distinguish between product or period costs. Depreciation on the salesperson's cars. Depreciation is an indirect cost. We have a hard time tracing it. But it could be manufacturing overhead if it's related to making the product. It could be selling costs if it's related to selling, or administrative if just part of the general management. Because this is related to the salesperson's vehicle and part of enticing a sale to the customer, it's going to be a period or non-manufacturing cost, in particular, again, a selling cost. Our next example is going to be rent on equipment used in the factory. So we're talking about factory related, part of making or producing the product or service. That's a product or manufacturing cost. In particular, it's going to be part of manufacturing overhead because it's not a direct material, it's not a direct labor. The only other catch-all is manufacturing overhead. Lubricants used for machine maintenance. This is also part of the product or manufacturing cost because it's part of the production process. This is an indirect cost. We're not going to have, it's not a material like a direct material that becomes an integral part of the finished good. It is a material, but we have a hard time tracing it to an individual product. It's just part of keeping the maintenance up to speed. Another example of a cost is salaries of personnel who work in the finished goods warehouse. So you probably thought you had this mastered and went ahead and checked first product or manufacturing costs. It's a period cost or non-manufacturing. So anything related to making the product and getting it finished, yeah, that's a manufacturing or product cost. But here the product's already finished. We've shifted it to the finished goods warehouse to keep it until we have a sale. So that's going to be a period or non-manufacturing cost, in particular a selling cost, only because it's after the product has already been manufactured. Number 5, soap and paper towels used by factory workers at the end of the shift. You might have said administrative, but it's not related to the general management of the company. Because this is utilized by our factory workers indirectly as part of the manufacturing process, it is going to be a product or manufacturing cost. In particular, it's not direct materials because it doesn't become an integral part of the finished product. It's going to be manufacturing overhead, just an indirect cost, keeping those factory workers happy so they can continue to work. Another example is factory supervised salaries. Again, factory or production related, so it's a product or manufacturing cost. It's not the workers themselves, so it's not direct labor. Instead, it's manufacturing overhead and indirect labor costs, just part of supporting the manufacturing process. Heat, water, and power consumed in the factory. Again, manufacturing related, so a product cost, and that's going to be another example of manufacturing overhead and indirect costs supporting that manufacturing process. Let's look at number 8. Materials used for boxing products for shipment overseas. I want to specify though, we don't normally box the materials. So you might have initially thought, well, this is direct materials. That would be a product or manufacturing cost. Because we don't normally box those, maybe we're having to crate them specially for an overseas shipment. It's related to getting that product safely to the customer since it's unusual, and it would be a selling cost, which is a non-manufacturer period cost. But if I shift down to 15, which I've identified as the cost of packaging the company's product, and the assumption is that's the normal packaging, whether it's shrink wrap, a box, or whatever it happens, and we slap that on before it rolls off the manufacturing line. That would be a product or manufacturing cost. In particular, that would be an example of direct materials. I want to look at one last one. So again, wages and salaries can vary. It can be direct labor or a product cost if, they're individuals that actually handle the product. It could potentially also be a product cost like our supervisor salary, part of manufacturing overhead. We identified, however, wages or salaries that are a period cost that are part of selling when it's related to the finished goods warehouse. Number 12 is again wages and salaries, but because this is part of the general management of the company, the receptionist is just handling calls and walk-ins for any part of the business. That's a general management of the company. Administrative costs, which is a non-manufacturing or period cost. Hopefully that helped you get some examples to distinguish between product and period costs.